All right, all right, all right. I think we are live on this Monday, December 16th, 2024. Kind of a different live stream that we're doing here on Family Search. We typically do some genealogy experts and do some specific genealogy topics, but today we're going to get a little into entertainment. And we're gonna hear from some exciting folks about a unique story. Let's go ahead and bring everybody up. For some reason, I'm getting a big echo. Let me see. Hopefully, this is not like I speak and then all of a sudden it's a 5-second delay of me hearing. So I wonder if I've got something open. I know why. Because I had the YouTube live going on my other screen. So hi everybody. Sorry, we're about a minute into this. I hope you've joined from around the country. It's 11 a.m. Mountain Time here in Utah, and I am excited for the topic today that we have on the Family Search Live. We've got here just illustrious women guests that we have, and our topic today actually is based off of an upcoming movie. Are you familiar with the movie 6888? It's coming out on Netflix at the end of this week, December 20th. It's a Tyler Perry film, and it is about the 855 women of the 6,888th Central Postal Directory Battalion from World War II. Now, that 6888 PH, that's hard to say. So we just say 6888, right? And it's a tribute to these women, what they were able to accomplish in World War II. We're delighted today that we have descendants of one of the members of the 6888, and we have a special guest, Milauna Jackson, who is a co-star in the movie it's already been released. So you might have been able to see it in select theaters around the country, but releases on Netflix on Friday, December 20th. So I'm so excited to have you all here. And we're going to be talking about how the family connection with this story of the 6888 and specifically how 813 of these women have been added to Family Search through the efforts of some volunteers around the country. So let me introduce my guests real quick. So if you, hopefully you'll jump on here and jump in. But Dr. Carmen Jordan-Cox is a retired university vice president and a judge magistrate with over 4 decades of experience in higher education administration and faculty roles. She serves on the Delaware Judiciary and has taught graduate courses in public policy, ethics, organizational change, educational leadership, communication, and human services. Dr. Jordan-Cox holds a degree from Indiana University, Pennsylvania State University, and Boston College. This is a well-educated woman, y'all. She is a dedicated community advocate involved in historic preservation through her podcast, Next Us 818. And her service on the Federal Advisory Council on Historic Preservation. Now, Carmen, daughter of a member of the 6888 Battalion, Private First Class Annie B. Knight. So, hi, Carmen. How you doing?
Hi.
Where are you joining us today from?
I'm joining from Delaware.
From Delaware. Okay. And those of you who are watching, please throw in the comments, where are you watching us from? We hope to be having you join us from all over the place. We'd love to see exactly where you're coming from. So please chat in the comments. If any of you went to Delaware or went to Pennsylvania State University, Boston College, or has a postdoctoral degree from Harvard University like Dr. Jordan-Cox, put that in there as well. So also on here is Carmen's sister, Dr. Karen T. Jordan. She's a distinguished psychiatrist, and she's an MD and Ph.D. with over 40 years of experience in the medical field. She's board certified in managed care medicine, and she has a Ph.D. in biochemical pharmacology. Another well educated Black woman. I'm in like I just got an MBA. I ain't nothing with y'all. Like, this is amazing. Talking to these women. Yeah, earned her medical degree from Wayne State University and specializes specifically in treating anxiety disorders, bipolar disorder, and depression. Dr. Jordan practices in Voorhees, New Jersey, where she's known for her compassionate patient care. She's also very, very well actively involved in the mental health advocacy and education. And like I said, she is Carmen's younger sister and daughter of Annie B. Knight, which we're going to learn about more. Let's talk about granddaughter now of Annie B. Knight and daughter of Carmen, Dr. Courtnee Jordan-Cox, Ph.D., ICADC, and an assistant dean at a private college in Pennsylvania. She holds a bachelor's degree in advertising and sociology from Marquette University and a master's in strategic communication from Villanova University. After years as a counselor and a family therapist, she earned a doctorate in organizational and industrial psychology in 2018. So I got 3 doctors in the house, y'all. So anybody gets sick while we on this? No, anyway. But when you're on the flight, they ask, "Is there a doctor?" Y'all like, well, I think probably Karen is the one that could probably treat someone the best in any kind of situation like that. But outside of academia, Courtnee is a certified doula and actively involved in Diversifying Doulas Initiative, which aims to support Black and Latinx expectant mothers in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Like I said, she is Carmen's daughter and granddaughter to 688 soldier Annie B. Knight. So thank you for joining us, Courtnee. And where are you joining us from? Are you joining us from Jersey? Where are you joining us from?
I'm in Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania. Okay. And Karen, where are you joining us from?
South Jersey, suburbs of Philadelphia.
Okay. Not West Philadelphia, as we all are familiar with.
No,
It
would be east. East
okay,
would be east of
Philadelphia.
But I
And
have
so-
to distinguish that because people think of New Jersey as North Jersey, and we are not North Jersey.
Okay. You keep them straight. I appreciate
Yes,
that.
we are South Jersey.
And so our last guest I want to highlight is Milauna Jackson, an accomplished actress known for her TV roles in series such as Strike Back and How to Get Away with Murder. I remember that show good. I was into it, man. She began her acting journey in community theater and later attended Howard University, Cal State Fullerton, and the University of Illinois in Chicago. Milauna furthered her education at UCLA, where she was cast by Spike Lee for an HBO pilot. She co-stars along Kerry Washington as Captain Abby Noel Campbell in the Tyler Perry film 688, releasing on Netflix this coming Friday, December 20th. Milauna, thank you for joining.
Thank you, Tom. And I am actually reporting from Los Angeles, but I'm from Chicago.
Okay. So we got it kind of almost all covered here.
Yeah.
So Chicago in the house in your person, but LA where you currently are. So thank you for joining us.
Tom, let us add that all the Jordans are from Georgia born.
Oh, Georgia born Jordans.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And y'all got a lot in common. We'll catch up on some of that a little bit later. But I just kind of gave you a high level overview of why we're talking today. It's about this movie 688 and about the women who served in this battalion in World War II. Carmen, can you kind of give a little more detail to those who are watching about the 6,888th Central Postal Directory Battalion and some of their historical significance?
Sure. Tom, let me first thank you and FamilySearch team for providing this opportunity for us to really share the story of the 688. This is a really, really important story. And sometimes you begin with the end. So let me just say this. The 688 is the only women's military unit to receive the Congressional Gold Medal. Okay, think about that. That's only been given to about 200 individuals. George Washington was the first. And the Congressional Gold Medal is the oldest and highest civilian award in the United States.
Okay.
So the 688, it was a unique unit because as many people know, it wasn't until around 1943 that Black women could join the Army, and it was then the Women's Army Auxiliary Corps.
Mm-hmm.
So it was difficult for a lot of African Americans wanted to serve in all the units, but there were very few opportunities to do that. So the 688 is unique. It is the only all Black unit of the Women's Army Corps to serve in the European Theater of Operations during World War II. There were 824 enlisted soldiers and another 31 officers, and they were led by Major Charity Adams. Mm-hmm. And they were in Europe from 1945 to 1946. So the women went over in two different contingents. So let me just say this: when Charity Adams was boarded a plane, she had no idea what the actual mission was until she got on the plane. They gave her a letter, said, "Read it on the plane." Okay.
Okay.
And that's when she discovered that they were given an impossible task: 17 million pieces of mail, letters and parcels that had backed up in Europe. Mail that went to the Army, Air Force, Navy, Red Cross, and other uniformed civilian civil servants. So I think about this: 17 million pieces of mail. And I have to say that the men had tried. And so, of course, and that didn't exactly work out. The morale was very low in the service at that time. So they asked her to put together a group of women, all of whom volunteered. They were already in the service, but they volunteered to go to Europe, despite the fact that most of them, when they enlisted, told their parents they'd never leave the States, which my mother promised her parents. But they volunteered to go into a war zone to handle this problem. Now, they went over in two contingents. In February of 45, they went over in the Ile-de-France. They literally had to dodge German U-boats that were shooting at them. Okay. That contingent, they docked in Glasgow. They were supposed to go to England, but couldn't. They had to reroute themselves because of the Germans. The second contingent, which my mother was on, she went over to Queen Mary a month later, and they landed in a place called Gourock, Scotland. So what were they supposed to do? 17 million pieces of mail. They had horrible.
By the way, you said 17 pieces of mail that the men could not do. I'm just saying. Just saying.
And so no one thought that they would succeed, because why not? You had these men, particularly white men, over trying to do this, and if they didn't succeed, certainly you bring a bunch of black women over and they can't succeed. And they gave them 6 months. Well, they got the job done in 3 months. But people think about mail. We think of just the what we get at the house that annoys us all the time, just people delivering mail. We hate it. But they have to think of this very differently. They had to develop a communication system. There were no text messages. There were not the computers to use. They literally had to develop a communication system, figure out how to process this backlog. Under Charity's leadership, they did that. They processed 195,000 pieces of mail every day in order to get through this. And the mail had first names. Oh, a lot of them just John from Kansas. I'm sure there's one John in Kansas. So they had to figure out how to figure out which John this was. They had to make sure, since the morale was low, you got people fighting, you wanted to make sure that bad news didn't get to people at the soldiers at an inopportune time. So they had to go through this. There were packages that had food in them. These women had to work in rat-infested buildings with windows shot out. Okay. They lived in the King Edward School, and they had to bathe out of their helmets.
Wow. Courtnee, this was your grandmama.
Yeah.
That was doing this, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. Yes, it was.
And that must be very, again, like you look back on what they had to do, and thank you, Carmen, for kind of setting us up with everything. But it was an impossible task that these women obviously accomplished, and it was something so noteworthy that the folks at Tyler Perry Studios got wind of it and decided they wanted to make a movie out of it. And they wanted to cast, you mentioned Charity Adams, who's played by Kerry Washington in the movie. But also there's, Captain Abby Noel Campbell, played by Milauna Jackson. Milauna, tell us, why do you feel like, Tyler and the studio, why was this an important story to tell by film?
Well, the film is a visual medium, and it's powerful. It's one of the mediums that can be seen globally. And it has an impact. It's always had an impact. It's one of the youngest mediums of all the aspects of storytelling. You obviously have live performance. You then have, through novels, their biographies. Charity Adams actually has a memoir, if I'm not mistaken, or has a biography, but the women collectively did not. And from my understanding, This was originated from an article that was a journalist, a male, white male journalist. I cannot remember his name. It escapes me right now, but
I
a part
think
of the story.
It's Kevin Himmel.
Kevin. I was going to
yes.
say
Okay,
Kevin, but I
Kevin.
can't remember his last name.
Mhm.
Kevin wrote the article. And then another journalist, female journalist, her name is Carlota. She and her friend Carrie are producers of this project. They brought this as a sizzle reel, if I'm not mistaken, to
Mhm.
Nicole Avant. Nicole Avant took the sizzle reel, took the idea, and then brought it to Tyler Perry. Tyler Perry, based on his experience with A Jazz Man's Blues, having a lot of the set design and the creative
Mhm.
vision for that period matched this period. And
Okay.
because of the departure from his typical films, Nicole believed that he would be ideal. And then a few other producers actually who were instrumental to highlighting these women. One of them was Liz Helms Fraser.
Mhm.
I call her auntie. She
Okay.
actually is one of those people who kept us connected and grounded and ensured that the women's it wouldn't just be caught up as a Hollywood film or a Hollywood story,
Mhm.
but American story because
Mhm.
that's
Wow.
American history, and that's a key component when we're telling these stories. You know, a lot of times they don't want to be told because the idea that Black women can be seen as real life superheroes, not some fictionalized version of a heroine, but
Mhm.
these are real women. They have real families. Obviously, the Jordans are
Mhm.
today represent the
Mhm.
families. And
Represent.
it's up to us to share our stories of heroism about the women in our lives who were just seen as a part of this fabric in a more domesticated standpoint. Usually
Sure.
it's, just only as the help. It's only as the assistant. It's only as the plus one. It's never as the
Mhm.
actual person who was given the mission. And I always introduce my character as Lieutenant Abby Noel Campbell because that's how she's introduced in the story. But these women
Okay.
were actually awarded a promotion during this mission,
Mhm.
and that's how she becomes captain, and that's how Captain Adams becomes a major. And so that's a key
Mhm.
component that we have to remember is that they were actually recognized through the military while pursuing the mission, but not recognized by the country by fulfilling the
Mhm.
mission. That's the
Mhm.
important part to remember.
Mhm. Mhm.
Not,
Well, I'm
not
so
until
glad
not
that
in,
you.
I was gonna say
Oh,
not
please go
until
ahead.
2022 when they got the Congressional Gold Medal. That was when they were finally recognized. 80 years later.
Wow.
Sorry.
And thank you, Milana, for lending your voice as an actress to this important story and jumping in and playing a character. For those of you who will watch it on Friday, when it releases on Netflix, you're gonna see her. I think you're like on every scene, pretty much that involves any kind of leadership of the battalion. You are right there, and so you look a little different, I'm sure, because obviously, like you said, Tyler and the group knew how to really manage this time period and tell this story, this authentic story. And Karen, this story is about your mama, right? And
It
so
is.
how was it learning that your mother was one of these women in the 6 888? Like when did you learn this and how did that impact you in your life?
Mm.
Well, let me just say this. We come from a family of talkers. And while a lot of the descendants said that they did not know that their mothers were in the military, we did. And my mother talked about it all the time. She talked about her experiences in Paris. She talked about, she said something about, oh, I was in the military and I worked in the postal service. And she talked about cracking Morse code and all those things. But they were just stories that, as a kid, you hear your parents rambling on stories about their history and they're interesting and you register them in your brain somewhere. But I didn't understand the significance of the 6 888 and her being
Mm-hmm.
in that particular unit until the Congressional Gold Medal came out. But
Mm-hmm.
I knew for years that she did this job, that she did a job, that she went to Europe, and that she did do a job with the Postal Battalion. and she mentions the 6888. So we you know, so we kind of knew, we just didn't know the significance.
Okay. And for Courtney, I think, as you know, your granddaughter. So, you know, hearing this story about your grandmother had to make you proud. What are some of the things that you learned about your grandmother and her service in the 6888 that maybe has impacted your life personally? You're on mute, so I want to make sure you come off mute to talk with us. Thank you. And hopefully those who are watching saw we just showed a photo, as Karen was talking about, of your mother, you know, of Annie B. Knight. But Courtney, please share your
Yeah,
thoughts with us.
absolutely. This experience has been powerful. Learning about her service. I didn't, as a grandchild, I didn't know much, but I spent enough time around my grandmother to know her as a person and as a grandmother. So if you
Mhm.
can imagine, my grandmother gave birth to her children. She was a little on the more advanced maternal age side for that time frame in that period, in the 50s. And my mom gave birth to me a little bit on the later side. So there's a huge age gap. She
Mm.
wasn't a young grandmother. I'll say that.
Mhm.
And so I really knew her as a grandmother and couldn't possibly imagine this same individual living out all of these adventures. But
Mhm.
she did explain to me just a few things, a few little nuggets were dropped over the course of the years. The first was to tell me a little bit about the story of her deciding to go into the service. Um,
Okay.
she worked for the Social Security Administration office. I believe it was in Baltimore. And she was in this huge room full of women clacking away at their keyboards and answering phones and all of the, not keyboards, sorry, at their typewriters.
We had typewriters back then. That's
I'm just
okay,
a
Courtney.
millennial, I'm
We from
sorry.
that, yeah, we from
Typewriters,
that
they're
generation.
typewriters, clacking away at their typewriters, and looked out the window and said, "This can't be it. This
Mhm.
can't be life.
Mhm.
I can't imagine doing this for the rest of my life." And that
Mhm.
sense of adventure ignited, and that took her along her way. Another little nugget that she tried to drop along the way, two more. One, she tried to teach me a little bit of French, and I kind of was like, I had no context. I said, why are we doing this?
Mhm.
She wanted me to call her grand-mère, which is grandmother in French, and I said, this just doesn't fit the situation. But I understand now that it was her formative time in France
Right.
that
Right.
developed her love for French culture. And then the next piece was that she tried to teach me a little bit of Morse code.
Oh,
And
I love that.
and and I also did not understand that out of context. It
Right.
just didn't make any sense to me whatsoever. Why might we need to learn Morse code in the 90s? I have no clue.
Right.
And so like all good history, this kind of unravels and gets more context over time. And so I've appreciated the process of learning
Yeah.
from other descendants and learning from folks like you who are doing some of this work to bring it to light, and the actors and actresses that have been involved, and creatives that have been involved in helping uncover pieces of the story too. I will say, as a Black woman in 2024, equity and justice are still very much an uphill battle.
Mhm.
And so I draw some inspiration and strength from her in this story in particular, and the women that she served with. And I also just want to draw attention to the fact that this story really illuminates how we define and interrogate what it means to be an American. That is a
Mm.
consistent process, and
Mhm.
not just an
Mhm.
American, a citizen of this world. What do
Mhm.
these things
Yes.
mean? What are our obligations, and how do we tell our stories? How do we make meaning of the really negative and bad things that happen around us? And how do we decide when we are going to use our strengths and talents to contribute to it?
Mhm.
Sometimes regardless of what is happening to us as individuals.
Well, well, if we had a pulpit, I'd say preach on, Courtney. But but there's a photo I want to show the audience as they're watching here of it's actually one of the companies of all these women, just to give you kind of a picture of what this looks like. I mean, look at this picture of these women. These were accomplished, strong Black women that were willing to sacrifice everything. I mean, they're going into a war zone. And really, for the first time, like Carmen said, they're in 1943 they're able to finally join and be a part of this effort, and then to be assembled as one battalion. This is a picture just of one company there, but to be assembled as a battalion is just, I mean, it just is so inspiring to me. If you want to learn more about this story in particular, those that are on the today, actually, Carmen has a podcast. Actually, Doc JC has a podcast called Next Us 818, and it goes and tells the story of these women in more detail. We're not going to be able to cover everything today, but you can there listen to her talking with her sister and with Courtnee about their mother, and also interviewing Milauna about her role in the movie and things like that. So I really want to point you to the Next Us 818 podcast to get a glimpse of the full story, because we can't tell it all here. We can only tell a part of it. And so, Milauna, I want to jump to you here and just learn about, again, Courtnee, you did a great job of just kind of setting us up about learning the history and the context of that history and the Morse code and the learning French and stuff like that. Milauna, you played the character, again, Abby Noel Campbell. What did you do to kind of get into character, to really learn more about her story, or what could you do to prepare for a role like this?
Interesting, because you said it. I've never played a character that's ever been this kind of leader, that's been responsible for commanding this type of battalion or group. And so I needed to do a lot of work in a short period of time. And part of that is honestly the thing that I love about what I do, period. And that's the research. I love obtaining knowledge as much as possible. That's through documentaries. That's through reading a One Woman's Army by Charity Adams. It's by watching war films, because I've not done a war film. Most Black women have in this industry and in Hollywood have not experienced participating as a soldier in a war film, okay? Let alone a woman of a specific ilk. She has attained this rank through real work, through real commitment. This was not given to these women. The honors within the military are earned by these women. And so I had to figure out what that meant. And I wanted to immerse myself in that world, in that period, listening to music, going to museums, reading any kind of war novel. Even I bought some stuff. I didn't even get a chance to get to it, honestly, because I kind of really wanted to respect my character in a real way. She has a son, she has a family, she has a legacy, and who am I to disrupt that? I also I was fully aware that a lot of these women have kids who want to see their mothers be respected in the way that Hollywood doesn't typically do with this kind of project. And so there was a lot that was at stake. And so I just continued to stay in that world throughout the entire filming. Even when we went to London, we filmed some in London, the city of London. That was pretty cool. I had never filmed in the UK.
On location? Yeah.
Yeah, I filmed. So when I did Strike Back, I filmed Strike Back in Budapest. Part of that production for 2 years was filmed in Eastern Europe. So I had that experience, but I hadn't had the experience of this caliber where it's still a period. That was a contemporary modern piece. This was a period film. So you still have to kind of be locked into that world as long as you can without releasing it. And so I did everything that I could to possibly get me there and to stay there until the end.
Thank you for the work that you did to tell the story and to honor, in this case, your character properly. Like you said, she's got children that stand on her shoulders now, and you want to do right by them by making sure you portray her in the right way. So interesting. I'm seeing in some of the comments that people have other connections. So Carmen, I know you've dealt with some of the descendants, and Karen probably too. But there's a Virginia from Charlotte, North Carolina, who says her great aunt served in the 688. So hopefully, Virginia, you'll be able to watch the film on Friday. We're going to jump into, because of time, and I know Dr. Jordan, Courtnee, you might have to bail out on us. I understand, because you've got some other commitments, and we so appreciate you being with us as long as you can. But I want to kind of jump into the story of how we all got together, right? And what drove this. There was I'm aware of and met a woman by the name of Debbie Osler. There's, I think, a picture of her and me and her husband in Phoenix just a few months ago. And Debbie became aware of this story of the 6888 and what was happening, and assembled a group of volunteers to do the research on these women and put them into FamilySearch Family Tree. So essentially, those who are watching, FamilySearch is a free family history platform available to anyone, where you can build your own family tree, and you can do it by researching historical records and adding photos and stories to the profiles of your ancestors. And it's, millions of people around the world are into this. Many people, this is a growing hobby. Well, for these women, we made a special memorial for them. And you can actually go online to the memorial. It's called the 6888 Central Postal Directory Battalion Monument. There's actually a monument to these women that's in Fort Leavenworth. I'm saying it right, Kansas. And the monument, it does, there's still some work that's being done on the monument to make sure all the names of the women are properly recognized. Not all of them are now. But for 813 of these women, Debbie and her volunteers put together all the information that's in the family tree. So Milauna, I'm not sure if you saw this, but let's go to your character real quick first. So let's put in Abby Noel Campbell, or just in this case, Campbell's probably the easiest way to search once you're on this page. And you'll see Abby Noel Campbell here. And FamilySearch has created an ancestor page that gives a brief history of her life. There's photos and memories for her. It shows who her spouse and children were, and as far as the research that's been done, has her parents and siblings that are in there as well. You see, there's some sources. So these are actually from historical records like the 1950 U.S. Census, or from an Alabama marriage record, and also the story of these women and their lives on FamilySearch is put in the context of world events. So you'll see kind of the world events that are there, and some things around their name meaning and what have you. All of these pages have been created for all of these women. So let's go back. I want to actually go to the woman of the hour, if you will, and that's Annie B. Knight. So we'll pull up hers. And so I'm just curious, Karen, when you have this page here, what information has your family been able to gather on your family history and Annie's, her parents and things like that? Have you guys been able to do much research? I heard you say something before we started about Carmen got a box in the house of something, and every family got that person that has the box. But Karen, what do you know about your family history and what's been told?
Correction, I have 33 boxes that came from my parents' house. But
33 boxes. Okay, yeah. Okay. So Karen, what do you have? What do you know about your family history, and what have you been able to gather through the years?
Well, actually, I know quite a bit about my maternal side, my mother's maternal side, the Browns. We used to have family reunions, so there have been several cousins that have done research, and we have a family tree. And of course, I've met it through the course of my life. I've met many of the relatives. Most of them, unfortunately, have passed on. So we have a lot of information, and it's not too much missing. From her side, my grandmother, Mrs. Knight, Pearl Knight, we know a lot about her family. What we don't know is a lot about the paternal side, Willie Frank Knight, because this story, as I've told you all before, I told you, Tom, before, is that he actually, the family name was actually not Knight. There was some altercation in the South between his Willie Frank's father and some Caucasian men in the community who were out to get him. And his wife, my great grandmother, took the kids, moved away, and somehow they became knights. So we're not able to go much farther than Willie Frank Knight on that side. But on the maternal side, we have most
You've
of the
done a lot.
things that we need.
Well,
Yeah, we have a significant amount of information.
Can I jump in?
I'm
sorry.
please, and while you're jumping in, Carmen, I want to show the obituary that we found for Willie Knight. Actually, is available on Family Search, and so I don't know if you can pull that up while you're talking, Carmen. Go ahead, please add to it.
So Karen was talking about our maternal side. On my dad's side, my dad was one of three, and his my grandmother married a widower. My grandfather, Charles Guggenberger Jordan. And as far as he was about 30 years older than my grandmother, we knew he had two children by his first marriage. Through my involvement with Family Search Centers here in Delaware, I discovered that actually Grandpa Jordan had 5 kids by his first marriage, which explained for us why we seem to, whenever we do DNA, it'd say we had relatives in Savannah we didn't know. But again, through the Family Search, I was able to discover that, was able to find in my great-great-grandparents and their kids. And I learned a couple of things we learned. One was that my great-grandfather was reading and writing in the early 1800s when it was illegal in Georgia to teach African Americans to read. You could go to jail for that.
Right.
And second, we learned that my grandfather in 1910 was one of only 8 Black men, because only men could do this, on the voting rolls in Savannah at that time. So Family Search is wonderful. I have a lot more work to do, but those are just some of the nuggets that we found so far. So.
Well, we can help you at Family Search. Like I said, you said you've gone to a Family Search Center. So we have, thousands of Family Search Centers, one near you. If you just search on familysearch.org/locations, you can find an actual place where you can go and do some research. And so, Milauna, one of the things that, please.
People are I can say this to your audience, extremely helpful at that center. They're usually several volunteers who get into your project and help you. Doesn't cost you a dime. So
we didn't pay her for this, y'all, just so you know. This is her own true testimonial. Thank you, Carmen. I appreciate that so much. Now, Milauna, I knew I was going to be talking to you, and so I was looking for something from your own family history and just had a short time to do it. But one of the articles I read about you talked about the 2 most influential women in your life, your mother and Lillian Monkus. And Lillian Monkus was a teacher that you had. What grade was she a teacher of yours? Do you remember?
Can you hear
in
me?
LA, the crazy stuff in LA. I can hear you. We can hear you.
Oh my gosh. So here's the thing that's so interesting about my life. Hold on, I'm just gonna pull this up.
Thank you. That's okay. We got a surprise for her, y'all. Just so you know.
Okay.
Please.
The timing of that question is so important because it's crucial to the trajectory of my life, actually. I had gone to a high school by the name of Julian. It was just a regular neighborhood school. It was close proximity to my house, and it did not have the tools to keep me out of trouble. I actually left Julian, and the first person that I met was Lillian Monkus. My mother articulated to her my interest in the arts, and I had already had some professional tools in terms of just on my level, but not in terms of the industry. So I had some pictures that were used as headshots taken by a family friend photographer, right? She saw this. This must have appealed to her because she immediately put me in the drama program. Drama was my major at Curie High School. Marie Curie High School is named after the scientist, Madam C. Curie. Marie S. Curie. And what I loved about Miss Monkus was that she knew that I needed to learn the value of commitment to a character, commitment to a storyline, commitment to the scene. And that was the thing that she really just poured into me, was how to stay committed in a
Mm-hmm.
room full of impressionable,
Mm-hmm.
teenagers, in a room full of girls and boys who really just were taking maybe drama because they didn't want to
Right.
take another class. And Ms.
Mm-hmm.
Marcus was really, I had her my sophomore year. So I met her at 15, and then we had I had her for my senior year. So I had her twice during high school. And in both instances, I was able to realize the value of the industry in Chicago. She was the only working artist that I had met in Chicago that had an agent who was actively in pursuit of a career. And it kind of gave me, it put it in a physical form. Sometimes you see dreams and it's all in your imagination, or it's on television, or it's in something that you've read, or something that you've even heard someone else pursue. But I didn't know
Mm-hmm.
anybody in Chicago that was a working actor. Like, no one, this except for Lillian Munkus. She was the first person. And so I knew that if there was at least one person who could do it in Chicago, they could plant seeds into me so that I could be a person to do it in Chicago. And it started in the community theater, particularly Black ensemble theater, which was run by Jackie Taylor, who is a Black woman. She was actually a working actress as well. She had a role in Cooley High.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, there's a connection to
Mm-hmm.
my home, Chicago. My mother went to Cooley growing up. She grew up in the projects and went to Cooley. So she saw a lot of her own life in that film. And so it kind of brought it all full circle about this is how you do that. There is a business, there is an industry, but it starts with building a foundation. And she was crucial in ensuring that foundation was solid and rooted not only in integrity, but in the value of commitment.
Mm-hmm. Now, I know that she passed away in 1999. And I actually, just based on what I've searched online and searched on FamilySearch, was able to find her headstone at St. Joseph Cemetery in River Grove, Cook County, Illinois. So this is a picture of Lillian Munkus's headstone, if you will. I don't know if you can make that bigger so that so everyone can see that. But these are the kind of records and things that people can find. And I know I know you're keeping it together here because I know that this is emotional for you to see this. But these are the types of connections and discoveries that can be made for people, using FamilySearch and doing this kind of research and things like that, Milauna. So I just wanted, as a gift to you, just to give you a little piece of your past and bring it forward to today. And again, to thank you for the role that you played in telling the story of the 688 and of these wonderful women, one of which obviously is Annie B. Knight, Jordan, and Carmen. Before we sign off, you wanted to share a little bit about your mother and kind of one of her secret things there, and then we'll kind of wrap some things up for today and share some things with everyone before we go, please.
Thank you. As we've talked before, my mother wrote a short memoir, and there's one particular section I wanted to share. She describes hers. Her first station was in Des Moines, and second was in Texas. Her third station was a place called Fort Gruber in Oklahoma, which the base doesn't exist anymore. But she described a situation where at night, a chauffeur, she was a private first class, a chauffeur in the car would pick her up and take her to a secret location, and what I think today is called a SCIF, which stands for Sensitive Compartmentalized Information Facility. You'll hear that if you're a news junkie, you'll hear a lot about SCIFs.
Okay.
And in that, they take her and she would have to decode enemy messages, and then they'd put them in a burn bag and then take her back to quarters. What we learned was when she went into service, she went in not as a postal worker, she went in as a cryptographic code compiler, which is a code breaker. And there are very few Black women who were code breakers. And we didn't learn this, even though my mom told us she did Morse code We didn't know what that meant. It was like, cool, that's another language. But it wasn't until December of 2022, I was looking at my mother's military records. I think they call it DD 214. And I sent it to retired Colonel Edna Cummings, who's been one of the main advocates for the Congressional Gold Medal. And she sent me a text saying, oh my God, do you know what this means? I said, what on earth are you talking about? She said, look at your mother's code. She was a code breaker. So it wasn't, after all of these years, it wasn't until 2022 that we learned the significance of that little passing comment that my mother made about Morse code.
Wow. Interesting. Courtney, you had something I know you wanted to share as well, but that's amazing you didn't find out until much later what she did. My father was in the Air Force, and his DD 214 shows that he was a special investigator, which he wouldn't tell us for years because he had kind of a top secret kind of thing in there. So that's amazing that you found that what she's done. I mean, it's just fascinating story. Courtney, before we head out, what would you like to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that this, to me, as I take a step back and look at everything regarding my grandmother's military service, our family, the families of other women, and all the stories that are now being uncovered about the women of the 688, and the rest of the military women that are now being empowered to tell their stories that are much later in their service, that came behind the 688. I just want to say that I think this is really all about a really divinely inspired domino effect. As one woman, as one Black person, as one, human accomplishes something, and it knocks into others, and as we tell that story, we magnify and amplify those voices and the impact of what has happened. But I think that in this case, my grandmother and the women that she served alongside started a really powerful domino effect for their families and their communities, and for Black women and many, many folks behind them. I know I am a product of, you can see the domino, just one little strand in our family is education. The women in our family are incredibly educated. Let me just tell you, not all present here, but the women in our family are incredibly educated. And part of that is learning from generations that come before you. And so I appreciate the domino effect that has been set off. And with every new piece of information that is uncovered, we're able to really inspire others and help to tell our own stories better too.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go back and get that quote. Something about divine I can't remember how she said it. Y'all felt it though.
Yeah, you gotta go back and get it, because I don't know what I said.
That was the ancestors channeling through you, right? That was the ancestors channeling through you. Thank you so much for leaving us with that. And one of the things we do at Family Search, we want these stories to be told, and we want these things to be shared. And so we've created this platform that allows individuals to go and do this research, to build their family trees, and to share collaboratively with others. And so as we end today, that's kind of the message. We are all inspired by you all. Carmen, Karen, Courtney, Milauna, thank you so much for telling the story, for inspiring us today. Karen, you got your hand up, ma'am, please.
I got my hand up. I want to say one thing. You did. We do try to keep a database of descendants as we discover them. And I noticed you mentioned that there was a woman online who is a niece. So I want to put my email address in the chat.
Okay.
Hold on one second.
Joseph, if you can grab that email address that she puts in our chat and shares it, if that's okay, we'll put that on. I think that comment came from Facebook about because I know you're trying to connect descendants, and that's what really family history is about. It's about doing it collaboratively. You talk about, Carmen, that your mother has this little autobiography or memoir that tells kind of her story, and obviously, Milauna, you referenced the memoir from Charity Adams and things like that. It's those kind of things that we want people to add to Family Search, and to use Family Search as a tool to tell their family story. I've been involved in a project for years, and we call it Reclaiming Our African Roots, or ROAR. And because we have such a powerful story to tell, that we want everyone to be able to tell their part of that story, to share the thread and the fabric that makes us who we truly are. And you can do that using the tools and services on FamilySearch. And so, you know, there'll be some links for those that you've been watching today that you can click on. You can read we have a blog post about the 6888 that tells a little bit more story about them. We also have the memorial page, so you can see actually if you're connected to one of these women in the 6888 of the 813 that we've got research for. And then we knew they were at 855. You said 800, and I can't remember how many officers versus how many enlisted, but maybe your family is not in that yet, and you want to add them. We invite you to add what you know and be a part of what we're all doing together. You know, this is we know, and I think, Milauna, I think I heard something. Maybe it was you, maybe it was not. That talked about the healing that comes as we do this work. Right. And as the self-reflection and as we understand who we truly are because of who we came from. We got 3 women who are all members of Sigma Gamma Rho, who are all, you know, have terminal degrees, all because of their mother and grandmother. Yeah. Right. That thread weaves through to you today and will be passed on to other generations as you record and share your story. So we thank you again for being with us. We thank all of you who've been watching, stuck with us for a while. I thought it was going to be 30 minutes. I lied. And we could carry this on forever, but we want you to all have a blessed day as we prepare for this holiday season. We wish you, you know, the best of holidays. We wish you a great Friday when you'll watch on Netflix the 6888, and you'll see Milauna Jackson in there. You won't see none of us, but you'll see Milauna in there as well. So thank you for joining us today for this live by FamilySearch. We appreciate your time. Take care.
Thanks, Thom.
Thank you.
Did the